Oh, well, g'day. This movie, I guess, is in a sense aimed at a number of my friends. I won't give their surnames or anything like that to give people away, but they know who they are. In other words, they'll be people, friends. Let's say Paul, let's say John, let's say Brett. And my friend Steve, I can say, he comes from Adelaide. And basically, and my brother, Chris, having quite a debate here and quite an interesting to and fro, as I call it, on Facebook right now. And really sort of delving into the various issues that I've been talking about, and this eventuated actually out of a movie that was said, and I believe it to be, supposed to be taken upon the Mars rover. Now there's a lot of controversy building up over this, and the person commentating on this said, "Oh look, there's a looks like a snake on Mars." Quite a wow, something you really wouldn't expect to see. Now, I accept that as a genuine NASA released movie, but was it in, can I put it this way, there's only about two possibilities that I can think of, and some of my friends here might like to debate that, and we're having a bit of a to and fro, as I said, on Facebook. A completely faked video, in other words, NASA faked the whole thing and made it on Earth, and therefore somehow or other, amongst all the rocks, there is an incredibly orange and like desert rocks and so forth. It was a snake. Unintended? Well, that's one of the aspects, options there, right? The other option is, it's exactly what they say it is. It was taken by the Mars rover, there's a snake in the background or in the rocks. Why didn't that alarm NASA and scientists who would have looked at it and zoomed in on that and said, "Hey look, there's a snake. Wow, we've seen a creature on Mars." Pretty alarming stuff, isn't it, guys? So, I'd be amazed if NASA came out and said, "Yeah, we've seen all this running. We've got these creatures that look like lizards. We've seen lots of things running around." Now, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That'd be great. Great revelation. And we moved on to discuss a number of other things, and this is where I got a concern that I have a number of friends from one end of the spectrum, let's say, to the other on faith and belief and lifestyle, let's say, or whatever it is it might be that they believe and have a mindset on certain things, which is really the word I'm looking for, a mindset. Now, I've got another friend, his name's Tim, and I've got a number of others that have a particular philosophy in that, in other words, they're Christians, and they, as I am, by the way, I've mentioned this many times in different people. And I can't think of the name of the scholar. Many years ago there was a scholar and said, "Oh well, the Earth is only about 6,000 years old, and therefore the universe is only 6,000 years old, because Genesis was saying that God made the Earth and then he made the other stars and the moon and the planets." Now that's not easy, right? Because, and I'm not being a smart aleck here, that then places the Earth at the centre of the universe, and it places it at the centre of creation. They're kind of, well, here's all the mankind. We're going to create this Adam, and then there'll be Eve, and then there'll be all these animals, and so on. Now, it's a pretty simplistic story, and it worked okay for a couple of thousand years or thereabouts. Christian scholar, by the way, was completely wrong, and to demonstrate that, and I think I might have said this on Facebook, but I'm saying it to people who haven't got time normally. When you meet them at an event, it might be a funeral or something, might have met a couple of people there, it's a case of, well, this is not appropriate time to talk about these things. It's, you know, meet and greet, talk to people, hello, and thanks for coming, and all the rest of it. The thing is, we talk about belief. We talk about things that we can, first of all, agree upon. We know there's flat Earth. You know, I've mentioned this before, but I like to go over it a bit. We know that the Earth is a globe. It's round, because you look out to your telescopes and you see other planets, and they're all round. You see the sun, it's round. Why would there be the Earth flat? Now, if that was so, the satellites that are going around the Earth, by the way, would show all the features, the water and the mountains and the whole lot. Then they go into blackness, because underneath the Earth would be just a black void, wouldn't it? There'd be certain thickness and be nothing. So we can prove that it's a globe, but we're not even talking about that, because we'll all agree upon that. Okay, so it's an area that we can start this discussion. Oh, then we get to other things. We can say, well, what about Yeti? Yeah, I can believe there's a possibility of that. What about the Loch Ness Monster? Possibility of that. What we've really got to say is fundamental belief here. This is where it's a big, shall I say, major stumbling block in this whole discussion, and it means certain people run away from the discussion, don't reply to it, don't bother with it, shall we say. But when you say, hang on, you actually believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old? And another friend would say, do you actually believe that the universe is not filled with life? It's like, no. God, the Earth, creation, everything else is nothing. They're all planets and stars and comets, and everything's empty, my friend. It's all empty. You know? Well, I reckon that there are countless species of aliens, all God's creation in a sense, and there comes another controversial angle on this, and that's, I believe that God's created evolution and spread it throughout the universe. And if there is a snake on Mars, that's just part of the evolution situation that God has created. He hasn't gone around, in my opinion, and created everything one by one. I'll make a dog, I'll make a horse, I'll make a bird. I think he's created, it's a startling, totally amazingly crafted and designed system that will unfold over a period of millions of years, and they talk about billions of years, and talking about proving, by the way, that the Earth is more than 6,000 years old. Just look at this galaxy alone, and there's a couple of thoughts come to mind. Number one, scientists have measured where the galaxies are. They now have a system of doing that. They say that from the Earth to the centre of our galaxy is 150,000 light years away. Therefore it took light 150,000 years to go to the Earth and beyond, so that we could see the centre of the galaxy. By Hubble telescope or one, we can get up and have a look at our galaxy, and we can look around and we can see other galaxies at a really considerable distance, thus proving that the Earth is more than 6,000 years old. Because if it takes 150,000 years for light to get from the centre of our galaxy to us, instant proof, friends, it's more than 6,000 years old. Now, as for life in the universe, and I believe there is, we go down to, we talk about the Nephilim. Now, this is something that some of you may accept completely, because if you're Christians, you say, oh yes, the Nephilim, they're fallen angels. Well, I can demonstrate that they're not. And straight away some of my Christian friends will say, what are you talking about, Jay? How can you do that? Well, I said, it's very simple. Angels are created beings. They, as far as we're concerned, they live forever. They're created and they're there. They don't have reproductive organs. There's no need to have them. And there's no teenage angels and baby angels around. Right? So Angels are just created beings. Now, there may be thousands, there may be millions of them. This is not the point. But when you say these beings came to earth, the Nephilim, pick the women, it says in the Bible, it's got it in Genesis, the women to suit themselves, in other words, and they just simply, well, they call it married to them, and they produced babies that, by the way, grew up to be giants. And I'm talking like Goliath, and Goliath had a brother, and there was more than one giant around at the time. We're talking 12 to 13 feet high, 12 to 13 feet tall giants. Now, some people would scoff at that. I don't. And we talk about the age of people as well, and some people would scoff at that. Say, now, I've done some study on books and documentaries and so forth, and got a reasonable understanding of this, and there's, they say that grey aliens and some other aliens are said to live between 400 to 600 years, and then people, of course, once again, as I said, scoff at that. Oh, how can you live for 400 to 600 years? Well, how could Adam live to 930? That more or less answers that straight away. We don't know how beings can live that long. We hear that there are jellyfish, by the way, that could be 1,000 years old, and some of them never died, apparently. Now, this is what has been revealed, that there are some creatures that live for a very, very long period of time. I mean, there was a tortoise that was actually a pet of Charles Darwin, of all people. He had a pet tortoise, and it only died in recent years. It lived for its usual amount of time. Well, it lived for a couple of 100 years. So there's a creature living for 200 years, proof beyond a shadow of a doubt. So we're looking at aliens 400 to 600 years. They died young, according to Adam. Adam was 130. So you think, some people think, oh, I'm talking nonsense. No, if you do your research, it's not nonsense. Now, I've mentioned this to Brett. Get hold of, watch the video called The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. I've said it several times. I suggest you look at it. You make the time. It's a 45 to 50 minute video. You have the time. Go out and have a look at it. Don't fast forward it. Don't skip through it. Don't say, it was interesting, Johnny, I had a little bit of a look at it. I'm not convinced. Why? Because if you don't look at all of it, you can't take it in and think about the contents of something like that. The same goes for my friend Paul. I learned in a book called Christians and Evolution from the Coorong Bookshop in Brisbane. Now, I loaned it to him. It's on his reading list, I'm assuming, it's for 2018. It says that 18 Christians, many of them Pentecostal Christians, let's say. A few would have been other churches, including a Catholic, and there might have been Church of England, or there might have been other denominations. It doesn't really matter. But they concluded that evolution did indeed take place. It sort of shocks people to have a belief that there's only either, there's no either or in this, by the way. It's either, atheists and they'll think, well, there's evolution and there's no God. It's either that, or God created everything as the Bible says, and he did it by his own mind, his own design himself. He created it. So they'd say there's no evolution. Well, I'm sorry, but there has been. And some people will be shocked to hear that. But get the book if you're a Christian, and several of you are that will see this, I hope, and hear it all through. Read it from cover to cover, word by word. Read everything. Don't skip, say, oh, look at a little bit of the introduction. Oh, I'll go for a couple. I'll do 1 or 2 chapters. Oh, yeah. And I'll go skipping to the end and hand it back and say, I had a bit of a look at that. Quite interesting. Oh, yes. Oh, well. You don't allow it to sink in what the message is. So I'm leaving those thoughts, and I've mentioned to you videos by Stanton Friedman is what you want to write that down. I want to write Michio Kaku, who's a physicist who's Japanese American. Write that down. And he believes there's God, but he doesn't believe in a personal God like we Christians do. But he believes that God created the universe, and he believes that mathematically that can be completely proven. So I'm asking my friends to look at 3 different videos here, and I'm asking you to reply to this video. Now that you've got a bit of time, look at it and reply to it. It's going to go on to Facebook, so thank you for viewing.